Hello ladies and gentlemen, Willie here. Today I wanted to talk about the true meme specs of the Burning Crusade. Now, as we've seen in Classic so far, there are absolutely some classes and specs which fall under the category of meme, but that's more through how players see them. When you actually look at your rep pallies, your boomies, your enhanced shamans, there was an intention there for Blizzard to actually create a archetype under each of those classes where they would be performing in a role, dealing melee damage, casting spells. I even believe enhancement shamans at some point could have been considered a tank. I mean, over on the Alliance side, Paladins had their heal, tank, damage dealing tree, so it would only make sense that the Horde got something similar. An enhancement had talents that increased their armor, their defense, their shield absorption, all the trademarks of a tank, on top of having abilities like Rockbiter and Earthshock that both generated bonus threat. It just, well, never became too popular overall. When I'm talking about a meme spec for TBC, I want to pick a class and a spec and make them do something they were pretty clearly not intended to do, but players back in the day and over the years through experimentation have found ways to make them do just that. These are true meme specs. They're going to be very rare. They aren't there to top meters or to carry the raid. They're there to say, hey, I can do this thing and it's pretty cool. And I want to start off with Spell Power Rogue. Now, first of all, do poisons scale with spell power? This is pretty important. No, they don't actually. No, I went on the beta and tested it, got myself a flask and a brilliant wizard oil and tried stacking up deadly poison. I even got mixed scrolling battle text, so it was a bit clearer seeing which damage ticks happen. And yeah, as we can see, it just doesn't scale. So that probably should have been the end of me looking at it, but I kind of got a bit into it and started looking at it in a bit more detail because I was having fun theory crafting it. So you know what, I'm going to show you what I found anyway. Here is the specialization I came up with. Now, you may look at this initially and think, have you lost your mind? This looks unbelievably bad. Now, of course, the assassination tree is focused around increasing your damage with your poison or nature type abilities. We have things like Vile Poisons, that's giving a lot of extra damage to your poisons and envenom. Improved Poisons, more application chance, as well as Master Poisoner. There's a reason we're not taking Mutilate as well, and that's because it costs a lot of energy for what it gives us, when instead we could be spamming Shiv as our main builder ability, which will guaranteed proc our offhand poison. So we're going to have our Deadly Poison on our main hand, we're going to have our instant poison on our offhand, and just pray that by the time we've hit 5 combo points through spamming Shiv, that we've got 5 stacks of deadly poison on the target, because it does scale with how many stacks are applied and consume them. The reason we're using Shiv isn't just for the guaranteed application, but for the improved combo point generation over Mutilate. So the Shiv's energy cost is actually 20 plus 10 times your weapon speed, so around 35 on average if you're using a 1.5 speed offhand weapon. We have lethality, which makes Shiv crit a bit more, I guess. And the main reason we're spamming Shiv is because Seal Fate will guaranteed give us another combo point if and when it crits. Quick Recovery allows you to recover quickly in case Envenom does miss, and Find Weakness gives you 10% more damage for 10 seconds after a finishing move is used. And then over in the combat tree, we of course have improved Slice and Dice. We want to be keeping that up as it will improve our chance to proc poisons. And we have Dagger specialization as well, which will stack up with Malice to give us a nice bit of extra crit chance because we want our Shiv to be critting for Seal Fate. Playstyle wise, you'd want to spam Shiv up to the point where you're at 5 deadly poison stacks and 5 combo points, then Envenom, and then continue stacking them up. I guess if you're getting lucky, you could throw an Eviscerate out there just so you're not wasting any resources. Obviously, there'd be a pretty big issue with being able to get gear here because, you know, you'd be in direct competition with casters, but I thought it was pretty fun to think about. So that is what I found for the Spell Power Rogue, even though it won't work. You know what else I thought of when I thought Spell Power? I of course thought the Hunter. Hunters have a bunch of abilities which deal magic damage. We have Volley, that does arcane damage. We have things like Explosive Trap or Immolation Trap. Arcane Shot, which also does arcane damage, surprisingly. But in TBC, this is about as far as I got. There are a few things that changed which just make it not work anymore. And to imagine, back in Classic, we had the Hunter tier 2.5, which actually pushed the idea that you could be having a bit of spell damage on your gear. A lot of the Hunter spell abilities now scale with ranged attack power, and your pets gain a percentage of your stats, so your spell damage Hunter just ended up looking like a BM Hunter that was bad, and this is about as far as I got with it, really, and there isn't enough points left to actually get down to the talents that would impact your spell type abilities. The Spell Power Hunter kinda dies in TBC. What doesn't die, and in fact gets a lot better in TBC, is your Smite Priest. On the upside for the spec, your filler ability in Smite can actually crit, which is something you have over Shadow that scale poorly as the expansion progresses because their damage over time and periodic effects cannot crit or scale with haste. Smite does both. It's easy to pick up improved Divine Spirit with the spec, which is a nice addition to your raid. Holy Nova causes 0 threat for an AoE. The Surge of Light talent is pretty fun, and tier 4 actually gives you more smite damage, so Blizzard supports your dreams. I also thought that holy damage couldn't be resisted, they only either hit or miss, but I was testing it on the PTR both for Classic and on TBC Beta, and on both they could partially resist, which I was surprised about. I didn't think that was the way it works, so you might have to let me know what's the deal with that one. Over in our talent tree, this is what I managed to cobble together. Starting off in the Holy Tree, of course, we have 5% more crit from spells. We've got reduced casting time on our main damage dealers, as well as some extra damage on them with Searing Light. Spiritual Guidance is a must-have. This is going to give us some scaling from our spirit. And of course we have Surge of Light that I mentioned before, which gives you a sort of lightning overload type effect. And I was reading when I was looking into this used to be able to proc off itself, so it could go as an infinite chain, but they changed it obviously in a later patch, which is a shame. As for our Discipline tree, I wouldn't worry too much about having Silent Resolve to reduce your threat. As mentioned earlier, we do have improved Divine Spirit, which is going to give you a nice extra bump of spell power. We have Force of Will, giving 5% spell damage and crit at max talent points. And of course, Power Infusion for the 20% extra casting speed as it now works in TBC. And I did take a point off of Force of Will and put it into Spirit of Redemption because it gives you 5% flat spirit. Maybe that's more worthwhile, maybe it's not. And that's your Smite Priest. Playstyle wise, open with an Inner Focus Holy Fire, then press Smite. On the downside for it, oh boy, the mana efficiency is bad. It's really bad. It's like priests that aren't Shadow aren't meant to be casting spells constantly. There's no items that buff specifically holy damage as there is with every other spell school. There is no debuff effect that overly benefits the holy school either. You're not getting any benefit from Curse of the Elements. There is the Misery talent over in the Shadow tree though, which will give you 5% extra spell damage at max stack, so hopefully you still do have a Shadow Priest. Outside of tier 4, there's no other tier gear for the spec anyway. And did I mention the mana efficiency yet? It's really bad. Either way, that is your Smite Priest, so don't let your memes be dreams. And you know who the Smite Priest is gonna want to be in a group with? Yep, that's right, of course the Shockadin. Now, I know I went over this in the Paladin video fairly recently, but I'd be remiss not to bring this spec up for this video. It's just so iconic in the Burning Crusade. Now, Shockadin technically was a thing in Classic too, but it had some big issues holding it back. Mainly Holy Shock just is nowhere near as good. It has a 30-second cooldown in Classic, now that's been lowered to 15 in TBC, and it gains a much stronger spell damage coefficient as of a later patch, which we now know we're playing on. What makes this spec good is the RP value. That's something. You actually do solid burst with everything lined up. You're pretty tanky. You're picking up items that could help you with boosting or AoE grinding if they're purely designed to increase your damage. No one really expects the Paladin to turn around and just do half their health, and this is something along the line of what it will look like. Of course, we need Holy Power for that 5% extra crit, and Purifying Power for another 20% crit on top of that, so that's already a very strong baseline crit chance. Divine Favor is your version of Cold Blood, I suppose, to ensure your next Holy Shock will crit. Holy Guidance is what gives you spell damage scaling as well, which is going to be very important for putting out damage. In your Ret tree, we have improved Seal of the Crusader, 3% more crit against the target, reduced cooldown on Judgments, and Eye for an Eye just so something happens between shock cooldowns. Crusade gives you a flat bit of damage against everything, and Sanctiora is 10% more holy damage as well. Playstyle wise, it's pretty simple. Divine Favor, make sure you've got Righteousness going to Judge, pop all your trinkets and press Holy Shock and hope they die. Also, there are trinkets like 6 a Demon Bag, which as far as I'm aware do scale with spell power in Classic. I was trying to buy one so I could test it on the beta, but there were just none on the auction house whatsoever. But I did find clips from back in the day when it scaled with spell power as well, so maybe that's a thing to add into your burst rotation. The downside for the Shockadin, pretty much everything you do is cooldown reliant. It really only works in PvP, though you could use some of the gear for boosting or grinding as well. If you don't win with your burst, then you're probably not going to win the fight you're engaged in. And you're not going to fool someone twice in a row with this, they'll know what to expect coming next time. Finally, we have another rogue spec. It turns out rogues can get pretty creative in this expansion, and that is the Rogue Tank. Now this is a very late game gear kind of thing. You aren't going to be hopping through the Dark Portal, doing a Ramparts run and tanking everything. You're going to get absolutely clapped. And with this late game gearing, rogues could hit the avoidance cap, where bosses who relied heavily on physical damage literally could not touch them. And that is a big strength because your healers really don't have to worry about it that much. Other strengths are It's pretty cool, I guess. You get to say, look, mum, I tanked the boss as a rogue. Over in our talent tree, this is what we've got. Of course, we need lightning reflexes for that extra dodge chance, as well as deflection for some more parry. We have riposte, which is going to proc fairly often as the boss will be hitting you, which deals a nice amount of damage for a very low energy cost. Blade flurry is kind of a threat generating cooldown. And over in the subtree, we have important talents like setup, which is going to be generating you a lot of combo points over the duration of an encounter. Sinister calling is a lot of agility for free, which is going to increase your dodge, your attack power, your crit, all the stats you're looking for as a rogue tank. And of course, we have cheat death, which guarantees 1 minute that if anything goes terribly wrong and you do get hit, you're not even going to die. And then we have hemorrhage, which is our main builder ability. On the downside for the rogue tank, well, basically your whole raid has to kind of humor you to allow you to do this kind of thing, and rogues aren't exactly renowned for their ability to generate threat or maintain aggro. In fact, a rogue tanking with the avoidance cap is quite literally like a druid just out of form, except druids are going to have 4 times your armor and about double your health and 2 abilities that taunt and much better threat generation. Out of all the meme specs we've looked at, this one definitely has the most impact because it's not just on you, on the player, to play correctly, but it's on your raid to allow you to actually do this and have fun with it and not overtake you on threat. So those are just a few of the meme specs that we might see about in TBC. You'll have to let me know if you know of any other ones. I always think theory crafting and figuring out different things that are possible is a lot of fun to look at. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening in, and I'll see you all in the next one very soon.